My father told me I wasn't family anymore, right before asking to borrow my tax documents to get a job. That sentence alone should have stopped me from ever getting on that plane. But 3 weeks ago, I spent $555 on a red-eye flight, $79 on a dress I hoped made me look like I had it together, and $68 on a rare bourbon my dad used to say tasted like sunset and silence. I showed up to his retirement party like a damn rom-com protagonist. But I wasn't on the guest list. Not metaphorically. Literally. My name wasn't there. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even flinch. I just turned around and walked out. But what happened next? That part no one expected. Not even me. 3 days later, I woke up to 57 missed calls, half from numbers I didn't recognize. One from my dad's HR rep. Apparently, he still thought I owed him something. Apparently, betrayal only counts when it's public. Let me back up. The flight from Portland to Atlanta was brutal. 4 hours of turbulence, and 1 seat away from a baby who hated sleep and my existence. I landed dizzy, my legs numb, and my expectations surgically lowered. Still, I had hope. That's what betrayal feeds on, hope you haven't burned. I wheeled my suitcase into the hotel, heels clicking across polished tile like I was auditioning for a role I'd already been fired from. I wore the slate gray wrap dress that I thought said, "I'm doing well, but I'm still open to forgiveness." The card in my purse held a check. Not huge, but enough to cover part of the European river cruise my dad always said he'd take once he retired. No one knew about it. I hadn't sealed the envelope yet. I was still deciding. I walked up to the concierge with the kind of fragile optimism that makes people think you're naive. "Hi," I said. "I'm here for Patrick Miller's retirement party. My name's Claire. Claire Miller." The woman blinked and smiled. "Of course. 1 second." She scanned the list. Paused. Scanned again. Frowned. "I don't see your name." I forced a laugh. "It might be under family. I'm his daughter." Her mouth opened a little. Then closed. She nodded slowly. "Just a moment, please." She whispered into her earpiece like I was a security risk. When she looked back at me, her expression had morphed into something softer, worried, maybe even embarrassed. "Someone will be right with you," she said. And that was the first crack. The second came 30 seconds later when a hotel staffer in a navy vest walked me past the ballroom, past the "Bon voyage, Patrick" sign in big silver foil letters, and into a service hallway. That's where I saw them. My dad. My brother Jackson. And his wife Lauren. None of them looked surprised to see me. Just annoyed. Dad stood like a disappointed boss. Jackson looked like he smelled mildew. And Lauren? She didn't even bother looking up from her phone. I smiled. I couldn't help it. That weird, sad smile you give when you're too confused to cry. "Is this the secret VIP entrance?" I joked. My father didn't laugh. "Claire," he said calmly, "this is a private event. For family." I stared at him. You do remember that you raised me, right? Unless there's a paternity twist you've been sitting on for 32 years? Jackson groaned. "Please don't make this a scene." I looked down at the gift bag in my hand. At the card still peeking out of the envelope. I wanted to throw the bourbon at someone. I really did. "You invited the Hansons. They sued us over a pergola." Dad sighed. "It's not about blood, Claire. It's about chosen family." And just like that, the bottom dropped out of the world. "I flew across the country," I whispered. Still believing. Still waiting. Dad nodded. "You made your choices." Lauren finally looked up. Smiled. The kind of tight, smug smile someone gives when they think they've won. So I did the only thing I could. I walked. Past the lobby. Past the fake champagne tower. Past the cardboard cutout of my dad in a fishing hat with a "Retired and ready to reel" caption. I found a cafe 2 blocks down, sat at the counter without ordering, and stared at the envelope. Then I took out my pen, uncapped it, and wrote one word in calm, even strokes. Void. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't aching. I wasn't confused. I was writing. And I knew exactly how this story was going to end. The thing about writing void across that check was that it didn't feel like a rebellion. It felt like a receipt. For every year I paid full price for a relationship that barely existed. For every holiday where I flew home, only to sit next to a cousin's boyfriend while my father played patriarch for an audience that didn't include me. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in my hotel bed staring at the ceiling fan like it was ticking down to the next disaster. The bourbon bottle sat unopened on the dresser. The check, still in the envelope, now had void scrawled across it in blue ink, like a final signature on a broken contract. In the morning, my phone lit up. Voicemails. Missed calls. Even a message from Jackson that read, "You didn't have to make it a thing." Right. Me. I was the drama. The first voicemail was from Dad. Calm, condescending. "Claire, I think you misunderstood what happened. We just didn't want to make anyone uncomfortable." The second? A little warmer. "You know I love you, right? This cruise wasn't supposed to come between us." But it was the third that gave him away. "I don't know why you'd embarrass me like that." People noticed, Claire. There it was. The truth in disguise. He wasn't upset because I'd been hurt. He was upset because other people saw me being hurt. He wasn't ashamed of his behavior. He was ashamed it didn't stay private. Then the texts came in waves. Cousins I hadn't heard from in years. A family friend named Dean, who once lent me his hoodie after a school concert and now wanted to hear my side. Even Jackson's wife, Lauren, messaged me. "You really hurt your father," she wrote, as if I'd keyed his car instead of just left quietly. I didn't reply. I didn't want to explain myself to people who needed PowerPoint slides to understand betrayal. But on day 3, something new happened. I got a message from a woman named Maureen. "Hi Claire, I'm with Human Resources at Eastbridge Consulting. Your father listed you as his emergency contact. He's applying for a new position and asked for your tax documents to verify residency. Could you forward them to us?" I stared at the screen. Blinked. He hadn't just decided I wasn't family, he decided I was still useful. The irony nearly knocked the breath out of me. The man who told me I didn't belong at his party had no problem naming me as his lifeline. I responded with one word. No. And 5 minutes later my phone rang. Unknown number. I didn't answer. But I knew who it was. More texts. "Claire, be reasonable. This isn't permanent." Then, "I'm your father. Don't be cruel." And then came the final, desperate Hail Mary, an email titled, "Let's try again." A long, meandering sob story about how things didn't go the way he planned. That the cruise was cancelled. That Lauren was staying with her sister. That retirement wasn't all it was cracked up to be. He said he regretted how things went down. That he believed in second chances. Second chances? I stared at that line like it had teeth. Because the truth was, I'd already given him dozens. Quiet ones. Uncelebrated ones. I'd said yes when I should have said no. I'd bought groceries when he called me selfish. I'd helped Jackson with rent after he told me I was too emotional. I wasn't cold. I was conditioned. Trained to hope that maybe, if I just did enough, I'd be let back in. But I finally realized there was no in. Just a revolving door with a toll booth. And I was done paying. That same afternoon, I got a message from Lauren. Short. Brutal. Hope the check was worth it. He was never going to take me anywhere. Apparently she'd found out about the cruise money, how it was never real. Just borrowed fantasy. Another promise funded by someone else's sacrifice. I laughed out loud. Not bitterly. Not cruelly. Just freely. She'd married a bank account. I had just closed the account. And for the first time, the silence was mine. When I was 17, I almost emptied my college fund to pay for my dad's second wedding. It sounds insane now, like something out of a soap opera, but back then? It felt normal. Expected. My dad was marrying a woman named Rochelle, who wore statement jewelry like it was armor and used words like synergy at brunch. She didn't like me. I knew it the second she called me Clara, even after I corrected her. Twice. They were planning a small beach ceremony in Clearwater. I remember overhearing a fight in the kitchen, money problems. He said he couldn't cover both the venue and the honeymoon, not unless Rochelle agreed to simplify. She didn't. That night, I pulled up the login to my $529 college savings account. I knew the password. I'd helped him reset it after he forgot. My finger hovered over the withdraw button for a full minute. Because that's how long it took me to convince myself that maybe, just maybe, this would be the thing. The big gesture that brought me back into his heart. I didn't go through with it. Not because I had some great epiphany, but because the bank flagged the transaction and locked me out. The next morning, Dad called me irresponsible for trying to access the account without his permission. Didn't even ask why I did it. I told myself I'd dodged a bullet. But the truth is, I was still holding the gun, just waiting for a new opportunity to aim it at myself. Flash forward to now, and the memory of that moment felt like a prequel to everything that just happened. That email from Dad with the subject line, "Let's try again," lingered in my inbox for days. I didn't open it at first. I was afraid. Not of what it would say, but of what it might make me feel. Because every time he reached out, he weaponized hope. And that hope? It made me reckless. It made me spend $555 on a flight and $68 on a bottle of bourbon I couldn't afford, just to chase the echo of a father who only existed in my imagination. But this time was different. This time, I had the receipts. See, I'd been keeping track. Not just financially, though yes, I had the Venmo logs, the Zelle screenshots, the co-signed lease Jackson defaulted on that torpedoed my credit score in 2019. No, I had emotional receipts too. Like the voicemail where Dad asked me to cover their property tax, then ended it with, "Don't get your feelings wrapped up in everything." Or the birthday card he once gave me with Lauren's name signed by mistake. But maybe the sharpest receipt? The Facebook photo. Someone tagged me in it the day after the party. I wasn't in it, obviously. But there was my dad, grinning beside Jackson and Lauren, holding a gold balloon shaped like a globe. The caption read, "Family isn't always blood. It's who shows up." You want to know the part that cracked me in half? I did show up. And he sent me out the side door like an Amazon return. I forwarded that photo to myself with the subject line, "Evidence." I wanted to remind myself what erasure looked like. What manipulation looked like when it wore a tuxedo and smiled for the camera. And then something strange happened. I got a package in the mail. No return address. Inside, the bourbon. Unopened. No note. Just the bottle, carefully packed in bubble wrap like a trophy nobody wanted. I left it on the kitchen counter for 3 days, daring myself to open it. I never did. Instead, I took it down to the donation center and handed it over with a quiet, "Here, someone else might celebrate with it." Because I wasn't celebrating. But I was healing. And healing doesn't look like a parade. It looks like silence that doesn't hurt. Like a voicemail you delete without flinching. Like not chasing after people who make you beg for scraps. I finally understood, love given under conditions isn't love. It's currency. And I was done trading. I thought silence would be the end of it. I thought blocking his number, ignoring his emails, and disappearing from the group chat would be enough. But the thing about a man like my father? He only hears silence when it's loud, when it's public, humiliating, impossible to spin. And that's exactly what happened next. A week after I deleted the last message from him, something about legacy and family pride, whatever that means, I got a text from Reed. He's not a relative, not technically. Just this guy who used to mow our lawn when we were kids and now somehow ends up in all our family orbit. He's a chronic meme sender and walking gossip wire. Yo. Your dad tried to get his old job back. Thought you'd want to know. Attached was a screenshot from Facebook. Someone had posted a photo of my father in a worn suit standing at a community job fair, holding a folder labeled contractor packet. No ring on his finger. No Lauren in sight. Just a man who once had a cruise planned for spring and now couldn't even secure part-time admin work. Apparently, the chosen family had quietly unchosen him. But it didn't stop there. Because later that night, I got a call from an unknown number. I answered it out of habit. It was his ex-wife. Not Lauren. The one before her. The one he left when I was 13 for a woman who had better cheekbones and an espresso machine. She said, "Claire, I know we've never been close, but I thought you should know. He tried to use your social for a background check at a contracting firm. My friend works there." Excuse me? I sat on the edge of my bed, brain buffering like a broken stream. He said you were still on his taxes as a dependent. That it was a mistake, just paperwork. They flagged it. It didn't go through. Of course it didn't. And of course he tried. The same man who told me I didn't belong at a party full of strangers now wanted to claim me on his taxes like I was a deduction. I didn't yell. I didn't even respond. Instead, I did something worse. I called the company's compliance department. And then I sent them documentation, my letter, the check with void written in sharp, thick strokes, and a signed affidavit disavowing any financial connection to him whatsoever. 2 days later, HR emailed me back. "Thank you for your clarity. We've removed you from his file and updated our records." And that was the first time in years I felt clean. Like someone had finally power washed the grief off me. But here's the part no one saw coming. I'd forgotten something. He wasn't the only one I'd been helping. Over the past 5 years, I'd quietly covered dozens of bills for my family. Electricity when Jackson missed a payment. Vet care for the dog Lauren insisted on getting and then ignored. Even partial tuition for my cousin's son, Liam, because, as my aunt once put it, "Claire, you're the only one with a heart and a spreadsheet." Well, guess what? I had a spreadsheet, all right. With every Zelle, every Venmo, every "Can you just spot me till Friday?" recorded down to the cent. And now I had a lawyer. I wasn't suing anyone. That would have been petty. No, I was severing ties legally. One by one, we revoked shared accounts. Removed me as emergency contact. Cancelled credit authorizations I'd forgotten I even signed. It wasn't loud. It was surgical. And when the dust settled, I got one last text. From Jackson. "So you're really done, huh?" I stared at the screen. Then typed back. "I was done years ago. You just didn't notice." And that was it. The last time my father reached out, it wasn't a phone call. It was a letter. Handwritten. Sloppy. The kind of penmanship you only see when someone's trying to look calm but their hand is shaking. It came in a plain white envelope, no return address, just my name written in block letters. Inside 4 pages. Page 1, apologies. Page 2, excuses. Page 3, accusations. "You humiliated me. You blindsided everyone. You cost me everything." Page 4, a request. He wanted me to help him file for bankruptcy. Not with money, he knew better by now, but with testimony. A statement saying I'd co-sign things I hadn't, given verbal promises I never did. If I signed, he said, we could both move forward. I read it once. Then again. Then I placed it gently on my stovetop, lit a match, and watched it burn. He was still trying to drag me back into the house after he'd already set it on fire. But this time, I didn't pick up the hose. I walked away. That week, I cleared my digital space. Deleted old voicemails. Blocked stragglers. Left the family group chat I'd muted 2 years earlier. The same group where they once tagged each other in cruise photos while I sat at home calculating how to cover my rent after co-signing Jackson's lease. Then I did something I never thought I'd do. I changed my last name. Not in anger. Not to erase anything. Just to draw a line in the sand and step over it. Claire Miller became Claire Rowan. A name no one in my family would recognize. A name that didn't carry debt or silence or expectation. A name that belonged to me. And here's the strange part, once I did that, the world didn't explode. It got quieter. Emails stopped. My father, from what I hear, picked up part-time work at a hardware store. Jackson moved in with Lauren's parents temporarily. The cruise was a distant memory no one could afford to resurrect. No one threw a tantrum. No one sent a messenger to plead my case. Because for once, I wasn't feeding the machine. And when you stop feeding a system built on guilt and dependence, it doesn't evolve. It collapses. They tried to cast me as the villain, ungrateful, cold, vindictive. I heard it through the grapevine. But it never stuck. Because people watched it happen. They saw the slow, quiet exit. The receipts. The check with void and angry, controlled letters. The letter I never responded to. I didn't torch the house. I just stopped patching the leaks. The final twist? Reed, the neighborhood gossip, meme sender, former babysitter turned part-time truth-teller, sent me a picture one night. It was my dad. Alone on a park bench. Same suit from the job fair. A suitcase beside him. The caption? Ran into this guy today. Man looks tired. He did. But I didn't feel smug. Or vindicated. Or even sad. I felt free. Because in every horror story, there's a moment after the monster's gone when the survivor finally breathes. I was breathing. Not because I'd won, but because I'd finally walked off the battlefield. My father stood in the ashes, matchbook in hand, still wondering why no one came to save him. And me? I was in a new city. New name. New lease. Sitting on a balcony with coffee and silence and sunlight, learning what it feels like to rest without bracing for impact. Not revenge. Not punishment. Just peace. I didn't burn the bridge. I just stopped painting over the cracks. And for the first time in my life, I'm not rebuilding anything for anyone but me.